America is currently fighting its greatest war yet. Each year, over 100,000 Americans die from opioid overdose. Areas like Kensington, Philadelphia are overrun with addiction. The combination of corrupt politicians and a healthcare system designed for profit has left parts of America completely destroyed. But did you know that it all started with Richard Nixon and his war on drugs? But was Nixon malicious or just incredibly stupid? The swinging 60s. Sex, rock and roll, and, what was the other one? Oh yeah, drugs. Everyone loved drugs in the 60s, and the hallucinogenic nature of the decade can be reflected in the fashions and music of the time. But in the 1970s, the nerds took back over, and their leader, Richard Nixon, a man determined to stop America from becoming addicted to drugs. In 1971, Nixon stood in front of the nation and declared drugs America's public enemy number one. He created the DEA and started the war on drugs. But Nixon's own advisor, John Ehrlichman, later admitted that the war was less about drugs and more about targeting black communities and the anti-war hippies. Oh dear. Alright, Nixon didn't mean war figuratively. He meant tanks driving down the street, cops in riot gear, and SWAT teams battering down doors and shooting anyone with so much as a spliff. Prisons went from being a place where only the worst criminals in society were housed to becoming overflowed, and entire communities became shattered. Nixon's war laid the foundations for mass incarceration, especially of African Americans. Alright, so mass incarcerations of a certain racial demographic is kind of like a de facto fascist state. However, fascism doesn't necessarily lead to a drug crisis. I mean, drugs were being policed heavily, so you think that would mean less drug addiction, right? Right? Well, Nixon wasn't done, and in 1973 he signed the HMO Act, turning America's healthcare system from something designed to help people not die into something designed to help corporations make more money. Suddenly, chronic illness became profitable, not something to simply cure. And guess what's really chronic and profitable? Yep, addiction. You see, if you cure a disease, you feed for a day. But if you get a patient, hooked on your pills, then you can feed them forever. Richard Nixon effectively gave Big Pharma the keys to the candy store. Patients became lifetime customers. Alright, so fast forward to the 1990s, and companies like Purdue Pharma saw Nixon's system and thought, hold on, what if we sold highly addictive painkillers and told people they weren't addictive? Just outright lie to make billions. So now we get to OxyContin, a opioid painkiller in pill form, like diet heroin or low-fat heroin, or I can't believe it's not heroin. Doctors handed out OxyContin like it was candy on Halloween, and boom, America had an opioid epidemic. So was this Nixon's fault? Well, not entirely. I mean, he didn't invent OxyContin and encourage doctors to become no different than a back alley drug dealer. But he definitely got the ball rolling. Now, with aggressive marketing, Purdue convinced doctors that OxyContin was safe. Prescriptions exploded, addiction soared, and Purdue's profits skyrocketed. But when people ran out of prescriptions, they turned to cheaper alternatives to get their fix, like heroin, then fentanyl, mostly made synthetically in Mexico or China. Fentanyl is especially bad as it's so powerful, you only need to smuggle a tiny amount to make a fortune, so traffickers coming into America illegally are willing to smuggle it. Not such a random fact, but did you know recently the cartel switched its main operation of business from drugs into human trafficking, as there is more money in it and they can use the traffickers to transport drugs as well. Two birds, one stone. Regardless of his own level of personal maliciousness, the crisis has spiraled far beyond anything that Nixon might have imagined. Now, we have around 200,000 Americans dead from fentanyl in the last few years alone, all while the war on drugs continues to chuck people in prison rather than provide actual solutions. Nixon's war on drugs was about as effective as putting a house fire out with a flamethrower. But the irony does not stop there. As overdoses skyrocketed, rather than helping victims, policies continued to criminalize addiction. Prisons filled up even faster, courts got overwhelmed, and communities drowned in the fallout. Instead of solutions like rehabilitation, harm reduction, or genuine healthcare reform, the system has always doubled down on criminalization, making the epidemic even worse. Meanwhile, homelessness has exploded, largely fueled by addiction. Cities spend billions each year to not fix the problem, but to manage it. Developers and private contractors rake in millions through what is best referred to as the homeless industrial complex. Similar to the military-industrial complex, the system is dependent on continuing the problem. Cities throw money at temporary solutions, shelters, cleanups, and policing, without addressing the root causes like affordable housing, healthcare, or addiction services. Why? Because the current system profits massively from managing the problem rather than solving it. Non-profits, private shelters, construction companies, security firms, everyone profits except the people who need the most help. If there were no homeless people, a lot of other people would lose their jobs. So, was Nixon intentionally paving the way for today's crisis, or was he just spectacularly bad at foresight? Well, the tape showed that he knew exactly how to exploit drug laws politically, but there's no tape saying, hey, let's wreck the healthcare system too. Nixon's vision was all about his own political gain, not the decades-long consequences. Now, he wouldn't be the first politician to think short-term, but the results of Nixon's stupidity is an avalanche of human misery and corporate profits. Same thing. Nixon's obsession with control and power inadvertently crafted a blueprint for decades of systematic failure. Whether malicious or merely stupid, his policies created the perfect conditions for corporate and political exploitation, and all at the expense of the American citizens who need help. So, was Nixon stupid? Well, he wasn't smart. But was he malicious? Yes, he was. Nixon's own advisors have admitted that the war on drugs had nothing to do with drugs and was all about targeting black communities and the anti-war left. However, he didn't know that his actions would lead to an opioid crisis, as the opium around during his era was pretty much exclusively heroin and morphine, and was nowhere near as widespread as it was today. If Nixon had a looking glass into the future, would he have done things differently? Maybe. I don't think he was evil like Hitler was evil. He was just a bit of a dick, like most politicians. The problem is that Nixon's legacy isn't just historical trivia, it's America's current reality. Opioids devastating communities, healthcare driven by profit, and homelessness spiraling out of control. But hey, at least he wasn't a crook. Thank you for watching the video. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I am getting really close to 1,000 subscribers now. And when I do achieve that goal, I will make a special video to celebrate. Thank you for watching and have a great day.